When an officer is called to the scene and there's a body on the ground with a gun, even if somebody says it was a suicide, it's a death investigation. It's not a suicide because you have to gather the evidence. You ask questions. You interview people who were witnesses. You find out things. You get a phone and you look at who made phone calls. You take paperwork out of the car to see was there a message there. And then when you get all that information, you can't still say anything because the medical examiner has to weigh in and say it was a suicide or it's a homicide based on forensic evidence. So if we go to this crime scene that night, and I got calls from the crime scene, from deputies and detectives that I know, that said, Rich, you can't believe this. Said, Radke and Nanos showed up here and they won't let us interview the suspects. I never heard of. The crime log was not the way it should have been. Evidence that was in the crime scene kind of disappeared. Wait, I'm not done. Hold on, I'm not done. I'm not done yet. I call them suspects, not that they were guilty, but they were people that you had to interview, okay? You show up on the scene, there's a body. A man over here says, well, I was holding a gun and I gave it to him. A lady over there who happens to be a wife says, we had an argument. Don't you think that's material in an investigation as it relates to a death at a scene? That's Detective 101. Your CID, if I had conducted that crime scene as a detective like they did, I would have been fired and maybe brought up on criminal charges because they broke the chain of evidence. And this is not me. This is a detective at the scene saying they wouldn't let me do this, and they reported to us that they corrupted it. Now, when you look at it, you say, well, why would that happen? Why would there's a guy in the department they refer to now as the enforcer, okay? And that's a guy named Joe Cameron. He's a lieutenant, and he has become the driver for Radke, and he goes out at night and he campaigns for him in uniform and does a lot of things he isn't supposed to do, and they're tolerated. He went and picked up Radke, and they came code 3 to the crime scene. I mean, picked up Nanos, and then Radke came to the crime scene. So why would you have a sheriff? Why would you have a sheriff? Why would you have a chief deputy at a crime scene telling detectives not to do things that they're supposed to do, and what they call bagging and tagging all the evidence and putting it into the appropriate chain of custody? All of that was violated. And so when you look at it, if I'm a detective and I'm investigating, I'm saying, so let me understand this. Gagnepain was one of the 3. Nanos was appointed sheriff. He appointed those 2 guys. One commits suicide. They just found out there's a federal investigation on police corruption involving them, and they're disrupting the crime scene. See, is it a coincidence? I mean, that's detectives. How many times does a chief and a chief deputy show up and give you directions at a crime scene? So that's what happened, okay? And that's not me. I want you to understand, I am the voice for many officers who have spoken to me, and we gave all the information to the appropriate authorities. But we were all terribly troubled, including the deputies and the detectives at the scene who could not do their job.